Hey everybody, Dr. LeGrand here, and today we are going to be talking about the best ADHD nootropics to eliminate ADHD symptoms. So how I'm going to actually explain this is really just kind of put you in my mind of like how I actually do the detective work of when I'm working with patients with ADHD to find the best types of supplements and also nootropics that they can use to really help eliminate their ADHD symptoms. So I'm going to give quite a few different scenarios where this might relate to you, and base this off of basically symptoms and presenting symptoms when someone comes to see me with ADHD. It could be different. Not everyone is the same, and so we can see always the different variances with people with ADHD and different symptoms that they're coming in with. So I'm going to give you kind of a presentation on each one and what I would do specifically. So I always do a lot of investigation and I look at a lot of different testing to really do that first to understand really what's going on for that individual. So like this very first case scenario is like the very common thing that a lot of us people with ADHD deal with where we can't focus and we can't have motivation or drive. And so the things that you should be looking at, and usually when I see this presentation, typically, yeah, we're going to see issues with dopamine. We're also going to have issues sometimes, a lot of times, with tyrosine. So in this case, with this patient, sure enough, his tyrosine as well as the dopamine levels were low, and he had low focus, low motivation, like a lot of us people with ADHD do, because you can see those in those areas. And so when I see this, this one's a little bit more easier to tackle, I would say, when it's that classic, when it's just a low tyrosine and dopamine levels, because tyrosine helps build dopamine. And then, of course, that's going to contribute to having low dopamine levels. So what I usually will present in this case is one of my favorite supplements that I use is called DopaBoost. Now, DopaBoost, the reason why I like DopaBoost is a few things. One, it has N-L-acetyltyrosine in it. So in this case, it's going to target the low tyrosine levels. And that's a good way of really that kind of form of tyrosine is really great. It also has mucuna pruriens, which is L-Dopa, which then gets, helps build dopamine. And before L-Dopa, it's tyrosine, right? So tyrosine is what helps build L-Dopa. So that's also great why I like this one as well. It also has green tea extract. So L-theanine can also help with dopamine levels. So I really, really like that aspect of it. So it's going to help with improve also dopamine. The other last thing that I would say, it has vitamin B6, the activated form. So, P5P, which is the activated form of vitamin B6, which vitamin B6 helps with a lot of these processes of building dopamine as well as building L-Dopa. Vitamin B6 is really critical. So this is why I really do like this. And also it's like something like quercetin, which helps with like more with inflammation. So this is something that I would recommend. And a lot of my patients do really well with this when they present this way, when they have low focus, when they have low motivation, but also when we do the testing, that we also see it on testing where they have low tyrosine levels as well as low dopamine levels. So that's step one. Now, there's also a different presentation where you could still have focus and low motivation, but your dopamine levels are fine and your tyrosine levels are fine. So then what? So, and this happens a lot. It's not a lot of times I actually don't, I probably about 50% of the time I'll see low dopamine issues. But what about the other 50%? Most of the time we'll see low PEA levels. Okay. So PEA, gets converted into phenylalanine, and then that gets to tyrosine. And then L-Dopa, like we talked about, and then to dopamine. Sorry, I'm in the way here. But you get the picture. So this is why it's really important to look at these levels so that we'll implement an amino acid, something like D-L-phenylalanine, right, to help these PA levels right here. And a lot of times this can be the case. Like this was actually for me. My dopamine levels were fine the last time I tested these, but still my PA levels were not in the best shape. So I supplemented D-L-phenylalanine, and I found a big difference a lot, especially with like forgetting things all the time. Especially when I'd ever go on my phone constantly. That's always a problem where I'm like, why did I go on my phone? What was I doing? What was I doing before? Or if I'm walking somewhere, I mean, who has that problem, right? If you have that problem, that's probably the biggest thing that I noticed when I started supplementing D-L-phenylalanine, that I didn't constantly have this focus or this constant brain fog or keep on forgetting where I was going or what I was doing, so that way I could be more productive in the day. So those are definitely, I would say, are the best ones that I am currently using. Now this changes over time, and there's different variances with people with ADHD, and we're going to go over some other ones. So another symptom that's very common with ADHD is depression, right? So if when I have someone that comes in that's more depressed with their ADHD, usually this is what's going to present. Not every case, everybody's a little different, but I'm just trying to give you guys a better picture of when you're having these symptoms yourself. Sometimes, a lot of times, we'll see presentations within the testing like this. So in this case, usually I'll see low norepinephrine levels, epinephrine, and low serotonin. So we know when you have low serotonin levels, usually people are going to be more depressed, because having a good amount of serotonin, that's where you're going to feel more happy, just have better mood. But also with low norepinephrine and epinephrine, which this helps manage our stress, you could either feel more stressed or just feel more depressed. It could be either or. You also don't have very much motivation or drive along with that. And so it's important. Okay, so how do we address this? So in this case, there's a few things that I'll implement. L-theanine is a really great one for helping both for norepinephrine, epinephrine, and serotonin, all three of them. 5-HTP is really great because 5-HTP is a precursor to serotonin. Okay. So either I'll do that, or L-tryptophan is another one, which L-tryptophan is what helps build 5-HTP. Okay. So so it really just kind of depends. We'll also test tryptamine levels to see if those are elevated. So that's when I might not use tryptophan if you already have elevated levels of tryptamine levels, and then we'll just go with 5-HTP. Now, you got to be careful with 5-HTP, especially anything I talk about here in this presentation. You always want to run this by your doctor, because some of these can interact with your medications. Things like 5-HTP is definitely a big one that we've seen in research, where it can interact with a lot of different ADHD medications. So it's why it's important to be working with doctor when you're starting to make adjustments here. But that is where, when you're having these kind of presentation, it's good to do this. Now, if you are having low dopamine levels, 5-HTP might not be the best option. If you have both low serotonin and 5-HTP, I usually won't do that, because 5-HTP can also lower dopamine levels somewhat. So typically, I not always will supplement that if both serotonin and also dopamine levels are low. Okay, so that's depression. Now, what about if you feel stress, have anxiety, feel agitated, and let's say you are on medications, ADHD medications, and you feel this way? Well, it might be because your dopamine levels are elevated. Your serotonin levels can also be elevated, as well as GABA levels could be elevated. Now, remember, stimulant ADHD medications, what its job is to increase your dopamine. Now, what if your dopamine levels are already elevated to begin with? It's going to make you feel more agitated and irritated. So maybe you've been on medication and it has made you feel that way. So it might not be the best option. And so what do you do in this situation if you're always feeling anxious and agitated all the time and stressed out with your ADHD? This is where there's a few things. L-theanine is another great one that can bring these levels down and help you calm. And also, what I like about L-theanine, it doesn't have sedative effects. So it's okay to take during the day, usually for most people. And some people, that could be really hypersensitive. But for the most part, it doesn't really have sedative effects. So it's great to take during the day to have that relaxed and calm mind. And especially if you do have elevated levels of dopamine and serotonin, because this also is great for serotonin if you have elevated levels of serotonin. Rhodiola is another one that I will use if someone is very anxious, agitated, and stressed, and also these levels are elevated, dopamine and serotonin, because that's also another one that helps really calm and relax the nervous system. And then typically, B complex is something I usually always tend to recommend, but usually when we see these elevated is because you're not converting your dopamine and your serotonin very well. You're not utilizing it very well. And so a lot of times it could be the in-between cofactors that could be an issue of breaking down and utilizing serotonin and dopamine. So those are like the three things that I would in this presentation. Then the ADHD symptoms, that when you are someone who's exhausted, you have those kind of symptoms. This is where we have to look at more like cortisol. Is there imbalances within your cortisol? Cortisol has a lot to do with our energy as well as our stress. And then I'll test things like, I'm not going to get into the details of micronutrients, but definitely a big one's going to be definitely testing something like vitamin D. So in this case, with this patient, they had significantly low cortisol levels throughout the day, as well as low vitamin D levels. So what do? I implemented adrenals, very first thing in the morning and also midday. And that really helped increase their energy, but also their focus throughout the day, and also supplementing vitamin D to help improve their mood, but also their energy. So those are the things I definitely will implement when someone comes in when they feel emotionally exhausted or just exhausted with their ADHD. And that is very common with people with adults with ADHD. Now, the other one is here is what about swing moods? Like, when you are really moody and you have mood swings within your ADHD, that's very common, not just in females, but also males can have this situation. So there's two different cases here that one, this is a female that came in and had imbalances in the progesterone levels. Okay. DHT levels were elevated. Mainly this can be contributed because of stress factors of also digestive issues. And then in this case, this was with a male and their DHEA levels were low. Now, DHEA is a precursor to estradiol and also testosterone. So usually those will show up low first before you'll start seeing low levels of testosterone and estradiol. So it's important to still address that, preventing it from being a further issue. So in this case, I implemented natural progesterone cream to elevate that. That really helped balance her mood for sure. And then I also, in this case for this guy, implemented DHEA, and this helped a lot with his mood because he felt he felt angry all the time, up and down. His energy was up and down, but adding something just EGA made a big difference. So these are the things you have to kind of look at when it comes to like what are the best types of nootropics to use. It still really requires really further investigation. So if you would like to find out, this info for your own ADHD, it requires further investigation. It requires understanding what tests do you need specifically, because not one person needs always the same exact, test results. It's always just looks at your medical history. And so that's what I specifically do. So if you want, my further help, it required me, my own health journey, trying to figure out my own HD, going to medical school and spending on continuing education, and spent over $500,000 just in that stuff. But you don't need to go to medical school to figure this out. You don't need to spend that kind of money. And you certainly, across the board, what we've seen in research is when you do not have treated ADHD correctly, we actually find in research that we waste about over $1 million in our lifetime because of not being productive, losing jobs, making poor decisions. And it's just across the board on average when ADHD is not treated correctly. And I don't want you to have to definitely be in that pit when you're at the end of your life. It's like, wow, all these missed opportunities or not being productive. You certainly don't have to do that if you actually get your ADHD treated correctly. And so what I'm offering is basically you book a one-on-one consultation with me for 45 minutes to an hour. It's a $750 value. And also I actually have you fill out a very in-depth focus mindset questionnaire. So this helps me really determine what type of testing that we need to implement, or what kind of treatment plan that we need to put together, or at least what kind of program and action plan that we need to be put together. So basically those things. I also, if you do actually get the consultation while here on the live stream, I do offer my health course, my HD health course, which is $297 value. So the whole value is $1,244. And since you're here live, you get it for just $197. So it's a steal of a deal. Like I said, normally for my time, 45 minutes is usually on average about $750, but you're getting for $197. All you got to do is click in the link in the description below. Once you click the link in the description below, it will take you here to purchase it with a discounted price. And then it will have you schedule a date and time. I have morning, afternoon, late evening, and then late afternoon and then evening, depending on your time zone. You can always email me if they don't quite work or you don't find anything, because I know I'm about a week or so booked out, actually probably about a week and a half, I think now. So you can always let me know if we need to make adjustments, and you can just email me on that email. And then you fill out your information, what you're coming in for, and then it'll take you to this thank you page. Make sure you check your email, because this will confirm your appointment, as well as the Zoom link that you're going to join for our appointment. Also, it'll send you our to activate your Practice Better account. So this is our patient portal, where this is where you'll upload any previous labs that you have. This isn't a requirement, but if you have any previous labs in the last year, you can upload it into our HIPAA compliant patient portal, as well as fill out the client questionnaire that I will need before appointment. So please fill that out as soon as possible, so I have time to look over it and start putting together your action plan for helping with your ADHD. And then block out 45 minutes to an hour, because sometimes we'll go an hour if we need to, and then show up early. So now if you really want to take action and specifically really tackle your ADHD health, then this is what you do. Just click on the link below and book that consultation with me, so we can put a action plan for you to really tackle your ADHD and have that optimal focus mind that you're seeking for. Thank you again for attending, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks. Bye.